Howdy, y'all, and welcome to Texas Watch for the week of Wednesday, October 21st,
First, there you
2020.
go.
I
You
got
got it.
there.
You got it.
I'm your host, Projekt, and joining me, as always, is the Tracer main with the biggest brain, Zay.
We are back for another week. Guess what Overwatch has played this week? Oh wait, none. But we
Uh,
still got content for
that's
you.
not true.
What else we gotta fucking do?
We had contenders,
Oh, we
but
did.
this
Three
isn't a
contenders.
contender show. But so here's the deal, guys. It's the off season. We talked about this last week. We're going to talk about this every single week until the season starts again next year. We're going to have smaller topics, little more bite-sized kind of shows because obviously there's no games to talk about. So what we want to do is kind of just take a look at various facets of the Overwatch League and, of course, the Outlaws and the Fuel. And today we're going to start with the Houston Outlaws and their, I don't want to say roster moves, but their roster.
It's one way to make a move because some people make moves by leaving. Leaving or not being signed is considered a roster move. If you watch, I don't mean to take the reins here, but like if you watch any kind of sport at all or anything like that, if you don't listen to, you know how free agency works and you know how the offseason works. Is where teams are, it's make or break time, right? You become a contender or you fall back into mediocrity and what we call an Overwatch bronze level. You you don't want to go there. So right now, excuse me. So right now, the Outlaws, are at bronze level because we have one player, and that
And
player is Hydration.
I think it's funny too that Hydration's the only one left, and wasn't he a mid-season pickup?
Correct. He was a midseason pickup. I forgot he was dropped by the Gladiators, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
yes.
Yeah, he was dropped by the Gladiators because we didn't even trade for him. We just signed him, so he was just dropped. So
Here, just give some money. Thanks. We'll take him.
yeah, and of all people who ends up sticking around, or at least is still under contract, is Hydration, the guy who picked up midway through the season, who was cut by another team. Um, with that said, Outlaws fans don't panic. We technically do have a person that's contract is expired, which is Dante. He's our expired contract, but he has the right to pursue other opportunities if he so chooses, if they're going to pay him more.
I mean,
Um,
doesn't Houston, now that they are privately owned and you guys were bought out by a big real estate guy, I'm sure that they're willing to fork up the cash for it. But this is the question that I kind of think about whenever it comes to any of the lower tier teams. Let's just call a spade here. They don't have as much money as the teams that win every so once in a while, like Philly, Paris, obviously San Francisco. What do we do with that?
it's tough because a lot of teams right now. I'll stick this with the Outlaws, but a lot of teams right now are throwing away roster. I don't want to say throwing away. That makes it seem like they're disposable, but they're people too. Players are
Yes.
people too. Even though Overwatch players are crazy because you have to be to play this game. Uh, you have to be a little off to keep playing this game with the many tilting moments it has
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
But the Outlaws, the Fuel, which we'll get to maybe not this episode, but another one, or at any point. It's Texas Watch. We go on all kinds of shit. But a lot of teams blew themselves up. New York Excelsior did. They only have one returning player, and that would be Mandu. Mandu. I don't even know who that
Who?
is.
Who? Did they even
Exactly.
did they even play?
Exactly. Everyone else is a question mark or has been declined. Who are you? Bianca, Hotba, Hacksaw, and Nene are not coming back for NYXL. So with that said, and if you want to get this info to Flame, our former Outlaws GM, tweeted this out. He made a spreadsheet about everything that's happened as of today. So you can see a lot of these teams are blowing up rosters. In regards to the Outlaws, if you ask like who they can pick up now, my first inclination would be that we have the capital, right? Because we've got a new owner. We've
Right.
got someone who hopefully, please, based Overwatch gods, was willing to spend and get us some good talent. But we don't know.
Then here's the
We
question I want to ask right off the jump, right? Seeing as almost every single team blew up their rosters, save for the
hmm
teams that did really good, your San Francisco's, your Paris's, your Shanghai's,
hmm
there are so many players that are quote unquote unavailable or available right now, but because the way that the Overwatch League has kind of made their contracts, they have to say, oh, well, their 2021 option was declined, but they can still be re-signed by this team. They're just looking around. So it
Right.
looks like a good 80% of the players were just yoinked. But
Yep.
they could get re-signed. I mean,
Yeah.
looking at the Outlaws specifically, right? I have all of the player contracts pulled up right now. Like you mentioned, Hydration is literally the only person that is still on the team, right? We have Dante, still a free agent. He could get re-signed. He could go to another team. Blase, Linkser. Didn't they already say LFT?
Blase's already LFT, so he's a little bit. People are saying he's a question mark, but Blase's gone. He's already tweeted it out. I'm not
Mm.
sure if they updated it officially on the team, but yeah, I assume he's out.
And then we also know that Linkser also is LFT. And
Yeah.
then for the tanks, Meko and Muma. Meko does have the option to still re-sign with the Outlaws, but
Right.
Muma, it just says he's going to exercise his option. Oh wait, no, I think Muma already said he's LFT.
Yep. He's
And
already said
then
all their pretty much everyone's Twitter feed has said that they're looking for a team on the Outlaws. I don't think Jexay did. I mean, Jexay did. Repel didn't. Repel hadn't said anything, but it's also showing his contract is declined.
yeah,
Um, it's and it's a weird situation. Just talking about the Overwatch League offseason in general. So in a lot of sports, you either truly become a free agent or you have team and player options. But Overwatch League is this weird sense of it's a team and player option kind of thing in a hybrid sense. And let me explain that a little bit. In a true team option, the team has all to say. If we say you stay, you stay. If that's final.
mm,
A true player option is no matter what, if the player declines it, he's a free agent. There is no looking for team until this date and they can resign me. No, when a player option says I'm executing it, that means he's truly free and he can still resign with that team, but more than likely they won't. But Overwatch League is this weird situation where it's kind of a player option. So they're saying, yeah, I'm looking for team, but these teams can still come back and say, we have the first chance to sign you. So I find that kind of weird. I guess they're trying to compromise between the orgs and the players, but it's really confusing for the fans, in my opinion.
well,
Like I'm seeing all these people leave, but they're not really gone, you know?
I think one reason why we have so much of this confusion is there's no true draft kind of situation. There isn't any
Mm,
real way for players who don't sign for another team to, I don't want to be say guaranteed a job,
right.
but not only do we have all of these rookies who just have to prove themselves on their team, maybe their whole team wins, maybe they're like a diamond in the rough kind of rookie, and then of course we have all of these players. Like personally, I think that Overwatch League would benefit very strongly from a draft system.
Actually an outstanding idea, partner. That's a good that's a good call. That's a good call there. That you know how fun that would be if there was an Overwatch League draft,
Yeah,
and then
dude.
you people had like scouting reports on like the number one prospect is this DPS player coming out of Korea, and you see all his highlights and they like scout him. I love that stuff because I as someone who watches a lot of traditional sports as well as esports, that's always fun. You love looking at the draft, who's the best, what teams you're gonna pick. You can trade up and down, and Overwatch League has the talent pool. There's so many players. It's not like you couldn't do at least a 3-4 round draft between all the teams at least. That's actually a pretty good idea. I think that'd be cool. I wish we could do that, and when a draft happens too, a lot of the older players have to realize like, oh, I can't just be looking for team nilly nally. Somebody can draft in my spot and take my
Mm-hmm.
spot off the team, so I got to be, a little bit leery. If I'm under contract, they probably won't draft that spot. If I'm not, they might do it and say tough luck, dude. So that would bring a totally other interesting dynamic, in the meta Overwatch League kind of off season. But unfortunately, we don't have that. I
Not
think
well.
we,
It
as
could
far as I
happen.
know,
It could happen.
yeah.
Like with a lot of the rumors going around that this next season is going to start later due to Overwatch 2, and we'll get into that in a future episode. I honestly think that this off season is going to be the most interesting, right? Last season, yeah, we did say, oh, well, season 2 to season 3's off season going to be super interesting, and that was because we were planning for homestands, we were planning for travel, there was lots of stuff that was being incorporated, but we are going to be stuck in this not LAN environment for a while.
Seems
I,
like it.
yeah, we're not really going to get any
Mm.
kind of real all players are in one location kind of thing. Because even with the grand finals, right? Like, they didn't build a stage. They didn't do any crazy, like, visualizations. It was literally just a CG thing that they made. All the players are still playing. I think they were all in like the same building, but there was no stage. There was no
Yeah, there was
screen
no
to go look.
crowd. It was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
us sitting in a chair at 6 desks and playing video games as a squad, right?
I really
So
do think that we're gonna be like this for a while, and honestly, changing to maybe a draft style system or even something that gives more players a better idea of security, right?
right.
Granted, we all know that esports is a little bit different than T-sports in the fact that some of these players can maybe play for 1 to 2 years and then just get dropped because there's hot new talent at 18, 19 ready to go. I I just want to make sure that these players that have been working so hard to grind for so long are actually continuing on in their careers, right?
Exactly. True, true. I mean, and think about this, esports is like we mentioned it a lot of times, is a young man's game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very easily for you to just kind of slip for just a little bit. And you've been playing for what 2 years professionally, and all of a sudden you're considered washed. Hell, I'll admit I even call Mecca washed, and he's like young. And he's on our team, on the Outlaws. For now. I mean, we don't know what's gonna
For
happen.
now.
But he's only been I mean, Overwatch League's only been around for what 3 years. And now, if you've been there the whole time, everyone seems old. Like, oh my God, you've been playing since season one. Like, how is that possible? So it's really weird to come across that and think in that kind of mindset. But it just goes to show how many people play this game and how much young talent, like we were saying, is out there. I'd be perfectly okay with getting some more young talent. I'm honestly a little bit envious of the Dallas Fuel, even though they kind of dropped Oni God and all those people. But they tried, they tried to pull in some younger talent that they could get. Um, I would see the Outlaws do the same thing. There's talent out there. There's some. I always talk about it. Like I do my Korea contenders plug every time.
Gotta.
Get some Korean DPS players. Just do it. Pair him up with Dante, because Dante can play anything. He'll play hit scan or projectile, whatever, and get another Korean DPS player. Do it, Outlaws, please, for me. So
Honestly,
we.
what I'm excited for the Outlaws in particular for this next season because it does seem like a lot of the player loyalty the org had with them. I mean, we had Muma's been there from season one, Linkster's been there
Yep.
from season one. Boink was still on the roster, even though he was the most valuable bench warmer.
Yeah, that's true.
When you have all of these players who have been with the org for so long, and I don't want to say they're expecting to stay in their role,
Hmm.
but you gotta sometimes try fresh new talent.
Yeah.
It's
Did you see Cool Matt is our GM?
what for real? Like
Yeah,
GM? That's awesome.
Cool Matt is moving up in the world. So Cool Matt is now a very high-ranking official. I wouldn't say official, but a high-ranking individual in the organization, which is kind of cool to see. Because I mean, Cool Matt's like my age. I'm not gonna date myself here, but he's not a young man when it comes to video game terms. So the seeing transition into that is pretty cool.
And that's what I
And I'm
want to see more of personally,
right.
where we actually have players who have been with the org who already have that loyalty to move up to management, coaching, analyst roles. That way they can
Exactly.
still use their talents with the team because obviously your reflexes go down as you get older. Yes, but your
Mhm.
brain doesn't.
Right. If
Or
anything, your brain a lot of times gets better. There's a thing that people talk about in all kinds of sports when it comes to experience. Right. Experience is important. Maybe physically with the reflexes and everything else can't keep up, but your mental game is still sharp. That's why coaches are old guys. You rather see coaches that are in playing, age, right? Because you got to go through it that many times to get good at it and realize what's happening and let the game slow down for you. So yeah, I was happy to see that. So that's an offseason move that turned out really well. That actually happened about 3 days ago, I think. So it's a very recent move. I'm glad they treated him right because I think he's, been very patient with the org when he knew he wasn't playing well. Obviously, Cool Matt was our Diva one trick because that's really all he could play. He was a true Diva one trick and at one time one of the best in the world.
a
But, once the world got wise to Diva and, the young kids got a hold of her, it was a whole other level of Diva play.
But don't forget the fact she got nerf after nerf after nerf. She said
Oh,
nerf
yeah.
this, and Blizzard was like, okay.
You're right. They literally were like, "Oh, is that what you? Okay, we can nerf all this."
So I'm gonna divert the question a little bit, but it's kind of in the same realm of GM player management, right?
Mhm.
So fans out there, if you recall correctly, the Houston Outlaws used to be owned by an organization called Optic Gaming.
Oh, and if you haven't seen, sorry, the Score Esports documentary on Optic Gaming and its downfall, watch it. It is tragic, but continue.
No, I will definitely agree with that plug. The Score Esports is one of those channels, organizations that do really good work in the esports realm. Anyway, if you recall, Hector Rodriguez, the previous owner of Optic, who, let's just face it, got pushed out of the company, now owns Optic again. It is his brand again.
Oh,
So
when did this happen? I actually didn't know about
very,
this.
very recent. Like, I want to say a
Okay.
couple of weeks ago. But
Okay.
here's the hypothetical that I've been thinking about in my head. What if Hex makes a bid for the Outlaws again?
We'll see. I
It's
mean, I would rather have an esports veteran running the team over a real estate guy in Houston, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah.
Unless the owner, but most owners don't, unless the owner actually is hands off. But most
I'm
people
pretty
who are,
sure the owner for you guys' team is pretty hands off.
that's what all owners start out as.
True.
Trust me, they're like, oh yeah, I'll let you run the team. Oh, isn't that what Optics said to Hector? Oh yeah, we'll let you run the team. We'll be venture capitalists. We're not gonna do anything. They started cutting shit everywhere. Like, nah, too much, too
Yeah.
much, too much. We want to market. Fuck the team. We don't care about talent. We just want branding, branding, branding. And they started sucking because they didn't have the talent or coaching, and then the branding fell off. So I hope our owner is not someone of that same vein. I don't know the guy. I should probably stalk him a bit on LinkedIn or something to see what this why this guy's so rich to buy a team. But maybe hopefully he's a true esports fan. Well,
He's
the
not.
double.
He
Uh,
sees esports as a growing industry, and he wants a piece of that pie.
that's what scares me. That's what our last oh, that's what Optic was. When the people who bought Optic as venture capitalists were like, "This is a growing thing. We just want to make some money and get out." So maybe this guy, hopefully not, but he could just be coming here trimming all the fat, as the owners call it, getting all the extra frivolous money that's being spent, get that taken away, and making a profit off the team, and then he may sell it. Maybe that's what those people do, right? He's a real estate guy, so he flips houses and he knows all about that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
property and depreciating assets. So I'm hoping that he's hands off and lets it be run the way an esports org should be run correctly. But if he gets sold back to Hector and Optic Gaming, that's even better because we know he knows how to run a shop, and I've seen the proven track record. So that would be the ultimate goal. I'm going to be following the interwebs now, watching for that
Yeah.
news at any time.
I'm
I
just
would hope.
that idea just came to my head just because the esports organizations in the Overwatch League specifically, the ones that are actually owned by bigger orgs, tend to have a bigger splash. I would say Envy, but let's be honest, they haven't really done very well. But think about it, right? NRG with the Shock. Uh, let's see, what other teams are owned? I was gonna say Cloud9, but they also backed out.
Right. Isn't Immortal still owns some teams,
They
right?
own
It's
the Valiant.
yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The Gladiators are owned, I want to say, by another esports. No, they're owned by the people who own the Rams. I can't remember their names.
Oh, I know you're talking about. Yep. So
Yeah.
that ownership group. But yeah, these teams have ownership groups, but most of them are esports orgs. I want to say, except for like teams that aren't, like Boston, are just dumpster fires.
Oh
So
god,
you
Boston is its
kind of
own
want
trouble.
that. I don't know who owns Shanghai. I don't know if they're
Uh,
even owned by anybody.
See, that's the thing about all of the Asia Pacific teams. The only one that
Hmm.
I am confident is owned by an org is Seoul Dynasty, and they're owned by
Yeah,
Gen. So
right.
I'm really not sure. It's mostly me looking at these teams and then the resources that they have when they're actually owned by another organization. The Fuel are my
Right.
prime example just because they are a team that has their own training center. They
Mhm.
had housing for their players. They have their players taken care of with coaches and all of that stuff because they know that this is what's necessary to run an esports brand.
Exactly.
And
It's
then
a good point.
but you also have the teams who are just owned by an owner, and like, yeah, no, you guys are a sports team, you're good. It's just the different realms kind of thing, and as time has gone on, I've kind of started to agree with Monty's point more and more that the Overwatch League trying to be run as a regular sports kind of thing hasn't really done very well for the esport, and we can't sit here and act like Overwatch League is one of the biggest esports out there right now.
It's not.
It's
We
not.
talked about that.
It's
Right.
not. And we need more to actually get that push to push Overwatch to be an A tier esport, because right now it's seeming like Overwatch is going to be B tier for a while, and I mean, granted, we're going to stick through it regardless, but it would be nice to actually be A tier to, you know, have big events.
Well, maybe Overwatch 2 will be the saving grace for everything. So maybe I don't know. A man can dream. Okay, a man can dream.
No, that's a good conversation that I do want to have for another episode, because there's actually been some juice regarding Overwatch 2 that dropped over the past couple of weeks. But we'll tease you guys with that and leave you with something else for the future. Back on the Outlaws, though, because I do want to get to a finishing point. We are at a position now that all of these teams, save for the most elite, are starting with almost completely clean slates. Yep. Let's be honest. If the Outlaws didn't pick up hydration midway through the season, he would also be on that 2021 contract decline situation. Guaranteed.
That's true.
So is he even going to play next year?
Who knows? Like, that's what's so interesting about this entire offseason, which I kind of started at the beginning of the topic, was there's so much ambiguity for what these teams can do. It's like this, I don't want to say dark cloud, because I don't think it's malicious or anything like that, but it's this black box that you just can't see into of what these orgs are talking about, these players. Granted, in sports, obviously, or in T-sports, I mean, traditional sports, there's juice happening in esports, but in T-sports, you maybe have a better sense of like this coach and this player are really trying to work out some differences to keep them on the team. In esports, unless you're kind of in that niche scene of like just knowing certain people who know things on the inside, you don't get that kind of true reporting, I would say. I don't know if that's just because maybe I don't follow the right people. Maybe some people can enlighten me to some better news outlets, or if it's really more in-house like that and we just kind of have to wait until someone does a random tweet or they actually announce it from the org. So it's a little bit different, and the power dynamic is trying to be more mixed between teams and players. So we just don't know. But I'm going to assume for the Outlaws that we have no choice but to keep Dante, because Dante, like,
yes.
do I need to explain? If I need to explain it to you, I go back and watch Overwatch League all over again. Watch every Outlaws game and tell me who the carry is. I know we didn't win many games, but when we did win, tell me who the carry was. And then I'll wait. I'll be right here. You can come back to the video and comment, like, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and let me know. Because we already know who it is. So he has to stay. I would think he has to be a locked player. I don't care what he's asking for. Give it to him. That's what you do to your top tier players. Because I think he is maybe one of, if not the best Western DPS in the world. So Western DPS, I mean, there aren't too many.
It's really hard to say that he is the best just because he was on a team that wasn't that great.
Exactly. We would have been the Shanghai Dragons without Dante. I'm upset. We would have been the Shanghai Dragons of not this past year, of like the original Shanghai Dragons.
The 0-40 Shanghai Dragons.
Yeah, the 0-40. I don't want to, let me clarify. We would have been the Shanghai Dragons of season 1. Like that Shanghai Dragons who didn't win a match without Dante. So I think he gives credit. I think they need to put their money where their mouth is and say that he is our best player. He's going to make the most. After that, you build around him. You say, Dante, where are you most comfortable playing? Do you want to play projectile mostly or hit scan? And he's like, I want to play Sombra. We would just build our entire comp around Sombra lineups. Whatever he wants to do, we should do. But there's so many free agents right now, or so many declined options, that if you were to ask me who we pick up or how it's going to be built, I don't know. There's just too many people out there. I mean, because if I'm looking at this, technically, I mean, we can sign all kinds of people. Who's available? Rascal's available, apparently. We could sign him. So, like, I mean, EQO's available. We could sign him, technically. There's so many people that are out there still that it's hard to, I mean, Hacksaw, he's available. He declined too. So to try to build a roster would be just me trying to pick an all-star team, because that's obviously what I just did. Sign all 3 of those players and put me on tank, and they'll still win. Like that's what I'm telling you. So all I know is that they've got hydration. They need to sign Dante. And everyone else is in flux. I'm going to go and say where Zay was right. I said the only untouchable people were Projekt and Zay Reunite and Dante, And I was right about, well, technically
Dante?
they're all expired, but I was only right about Dante. Everyone else is gone.
I say, yeah,
And
Jet say Repel ain't staying. Sorry.
so I was right in saying that everyone else needed to go. We need to wipe the whole roster, and it sounds like that's what the Outlaws are doing. So if that's what they're doing, good job, General Manager Cool Matt. You get my round of applause. To the owner for listening to him, and to Harsha for being on board with the decision and saying, "Yo, guys, y'all were good and all, but I came from the shock, and coming from the shock, we had a lot more talented players. So I'm gonna need y'all to pack your bags and good luck,
Yeah.
buddies."
This off season is just so turbulent, and I do look forward to these like November contracts actually getting not fulfilled but going through, just so we actually know what players are truly free and what players are unavailable. But with that being said, this has been Texas Watch. You can catch the show right here on YouTube. Please go down below, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're listening to us on podcast services, hey, how you doing? Thanks for letting us enrich your ears for the last 25 minutes. Please do us a favor, give us a subscribe. Maybe even leave us a review on Spotify. We'd really appreciate it. It helps the show go around a little bit more. But until next time, let's make Texas proud.
Yeehaw! Any up?